Hello, Bulldogs. It is National Cheddar Fries Day. So I look at that picture and I get so hungry. It sounds so good right now. So if you're into cheddar fries, that's your dinner tonight, or maybe just a snack. But today we're going to talk about how the Middle Ages became an age of faith and education. So we've been talking about how the church becomes extremely important during this time period, but they also spur this need to or desire to learn. And so we're going to see that kind of jump start again during the Middle Ages. Our schedule is pretty much the same. We've got our do now, some notes, guided practice, independent practice. The last slide of the independent practice is straight from your quiz on tomorrow. Your quiz is over Friday, yesterday, and today. So you want to make sure you are looking at those multiple choice questions. The multiple choice questions that are typically, they almost look like well, they don't look like I did. I screenshotted them and put them in. Typically, you have a purple box next to it that you have to enter your answer. So you want to study those questions for sure. And it is still April, so we are still in Keep America Beautiful month. So make sure you are doing your best not to litter and keep our country pretty. All right, so you're due now. This is based off of yesterday's lesson. So you're going to, again, answer these multiple choice questions. These are also straight from your quiz. See how I'm talking about it looks like I screenshotted them. They're not in my typical font that I type in. Those questions will be on the quiz. So you definitely want to pay attention and try this do now and see what you need to study and what you don't need to study, what you already know and what you don't, and what you need to review for tomorrow. So go ahead and pause the video and answer these 3 questions in the purple text boxes. All right, so number 1, what was given to a large event with merchants and entertainers? That would be a fair. Now, if you're ever stuck on this question, think about the Ohio State Fair, right? If you go, you're going to see a bunch of people selling stuff, you're going to see a bunch of people entertaining, you're going to see a bunch of animals. That's a fair, and they had the same thing. So we get that from them. The next one, I guess number 2, you can't really see the number. What was the purpose of a guild? It was A, to protect artisans' financial interests, to make sure that artisans were making the money they should make and that there were different opportunities for these artisans to grow their business. And the last one, why did medieval towns offer more freedom than manors? That would be because towns were beyond the control of feudal lords. On the manors, they were peasants and serfs, and villagers were kind of stuck there, and they didn't have a lot of freedom. They were under the control of those lords that kind of told them how to run their day and how to schedule it. And so we start to see this desire to move out of that and go with people. Friday's group of in-class students, hybrid students, really had contributed a lot of why the one question in the slides was like, why would a young person want to go to a town and not stay on the manor? And they had some really great contributions to add to that conversation. All right, so we've got some notes, and again, we are continuing with adding context clue sentences for you to better understand the word. So our first word today is mendicant, and this is a group of religious beggars that were founded to fight heresy. What is heresy? Do we remember what heresy is? Wait. Heresy is going against the church, okay? Or anything that the church deemed as not church-like. And they would also preach to ordinary people in the hopes of gaining conversion. So our context clue sentence is the mendicant monks begged for food, drink, and new Christian followers. Universities obviously are, well, not obviously, I don't want to say that or else we wouldn't be defining it, are schools that educate to the highest level. So our context clue sentence is CCA teachers all have degrees from universities or colleges. And then we have natural law. Natural law is law or rules that do not change over time from one society to another. So our context clue sentences has to do with gravity, and that is what goes up must come down is the natural law of gravity. So go ahead and pause and get those down, and we will move on. These are some pictures of some Gothic churches, and that's what we're going to talk about when we're talking about architecture today. Churches are really going to change how they look, and so this is kind of the new style of architecture that we're going to see. So this is an example. You can see that the towers are very tall, very slender, almost tall and thin. And inside, they're much more spacious. I'll have to show you some. Maybe I'll bring some and show you before your quiz tomorrow. I have lots of pictures of Gothic cathedrals during my trips to Europe. But they are quite tall, quite spacious, quite open. They're not full of stuff. Just very airy. You can walk into a Gothic cathedral and say hello, and you hear hello, 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 hello. Okay. So we're going to start with our guided practice. We're going to talk about some forms of devotion. We're going to talk about those mendicant orders. So religion was so important in the Middle Ages that this period is sometimes called the Age of Faith. Throughout most of Western Europe, Roman Catholicism was the dominant form of Christianity. Christian Europe expressed its devotion to God through personal prayer and public worship. Religious orders. In early Christianity, monks and nuns pursued personal salvation through prayer and meditation. I'm tongue-tied today. They lived in monasteries that were often set in remote spots, cut off from contact with the world. However, by the 1200s, monasteries played a more active role in the world. Monasteries were centers of agricultural production and owned large areas of land. Some monasteries were located in towns where they provided education or charity to ordinary people. Also in the 1200s, new forms of Christian community emerged. For example, the mendicant orders were founded to fight heresy and to preach to ordinary people. The mendicants, or beggars, owned no property, and mendicants survived by begging for all of their food and their drink. So they didn't purchase anything, they begged for everything. They didn't steal. That would not be very Christian-like. Thou shalt not steal. But they begged. They weren't worried about material things. They were worried about spiritual things. So go ahead and pause and answer question 1. Why are the Middle Ages sometimes called the Age of Faith? And number 2, why does the vow of poverty show, or what does the vow of poverty show about the mendicant orders? Go ahead and pause. All right, so we see forms of devotion question 1. Why are the Middle Ages called the Age of Faith? The correct answer to this question, now again, if you don't have it verbatim to me, that's fine. If you have it in your own words, but you basically have the same thing, that is fine. Don't, waste your time and delete everything and fix it when it's basically the same thing. Religion was extremely important during this time. The church ran people's everyday lives. Okay, and you can see that through this paragraph here. I put it in my own words. I didn't exactly quote the text, which is good. You want to put things in your own words sometimes. You don't want to be a robot. And then what does the vow of poverty show about the mendicant orders? It shows their value on spiritual, not material things, which I did just kind of mention. If you look down here, that's going to be here, where they owned no property. They didn't own things. They just had the bare minimum of what they needed. And if they needed food or drink, they begged for it. We're going to keep going with another slide of guided practice because this lesson is a little bit longer. And I really want you to understand the gravity of this growth during this time period, during the High Middle Ages. Religion also had a great influence on the arts during the Middle Ages. The church shaped cultural values and helped form codes of conduct. Since the fall of Rome, the church had disapproved of drama because of its association with the pre-Christian world. So plays and entertainment, a lot of them were not on topics associated with the church, so they didn't like it. They disapproved of it. Eventually, the church allowed plays based on stories from the Bible. These mystery plays marked the revival of European drama. So the church kind of says, okay, we can have drama, we can have plays and entertainment now, but it has to be based off the Bible. New architecture, religion also inspired some of the greatest architecture since ancient times. A new building style that came to be known as Gothic emerged. Gothic combined religious symbolism with engineering advances. Cathedrals built in the Gothic style were higher than any seen before in Western Europe. You can see this example. Gothic was a revolutionary new architecture. Earlier churches were dark and gloomy. They had massive walls, thick columns, and narrow windows. By the mid 1100s, building technology had advanced. European architectures found a way of concentrating the weight of the roof on certain points in the wall. This meant that huge areas of wall could now be opened up. Windows could be larger, filling the buildings with light. This architectural breakthrough allowed masons to build stone architectures that were spacious and airy. So go ahead and pause and answer question 3. What areas of the arts did the church influence? You're going to find that over here. Oops, my mouse is kind of doing what it wants to do. And then question 4, how were Gothic churches different from medieval churches? So you're going to look in architecture for that. So go ahead and pause and answer those questions. All right, so what areas of the arts did the church influence? It influenced drama. We see architecture, sculpture, and painting. And that's because we have decorations. Now, if you don't have sculpture and painting, that's okay. Just make sure you add that in there. How were Gothic churches different from medieval churches? Gothic churches were higher. You can see that clearly in the image. They were airier. We saw that when we saw the big spacious room in the previous slide, and they were lighter. The walls were not so huge and thick. Go ahead and pause and get that down. Again, if you have it in your own words, similar to mine, you don't need to fix it. But if you're like way off the grid, you want to get that down. So for independent practice, you are going to read about how the church starts to shape chivalry and knighthood. And basically, I want to know what caused medieval knights to be affected by the church. So what are some things that happened that caused them to be affected? Then you are going to read about Thomas Aquinas and his, Aquinas. Oh, I always say his name wrong at first. Aquinas. And his idea of natural law. And then the last question is, why do you think people were so optimistic in the 1200s? And you're going to find that in this column, Age of Confidence. Why were people so confident and optimistic? Then for the last slide, this one's really important because these questions, again, are straight from your quiz. You have 5 multiple choice questions, and then I'd like you, just like you did for the Advances in Farming graphic organizer, you're going to do that for changes in learning. So for example, I gave you one, which would be universities. So what are some other changes in learning that happened during this time? And then of course, for your multiple choice questions, you would put your answer in this text box. And then you are done. Make sure you go back and look at old slides and feedback for your questions that will be on your quiz tomorrow. And tomorrow we will have, again, the quiz. I'll probably share some Gothic church pictures, and then you'll have some enrichment again, which will help you learn about what we are going to start to talk about, where things start to take a nasty turn in the Middle Ages, where we start to get into not so great times. All right. So I will see you all tomorrow. Bye.